Okay. Hello, welcome to Educators with Oil. I am your hostess, Ronnette Branham, here to offer biblical strategies for effective teaching. This is such an exciting season for me. I have decided to go full force with my new word of the year, which is flourish. And so I'm driving into this podcast with everything I have. And I'm excited that I have so many new followers, so many new subscribers, and even uh 3 months worth of guests coming up. And I'm so excited. I've met some extraordinary people over this last today's only the 7th, and I have met some extraordinary people since January 1st, which I am so excited just to be in their presence. And I know we're waiting for yes, she's here, and I am excited about that. We have a special guest today, and every time I've heard this woman speak, I've been blown away. The first time I saw her, I didn't know what she was. I'm saying what? I didn't know the power that was going to come out of her voice. And then when I heard her speak at two conferences, a conference and a convention, I was like, "Oh my God, this woman is powerful and she is inspiring." Just she could probably say one sentence and I'm like, "Okay, where's the offering, please?" But again, I am ready to bring her on. This is Ms. Petal Robertson. She is the secretary treasurer for NJEA, um, New Jersey Educators Association. Association. Yeah. So how are you today, Petal?
I am wonderful. First of all, that intro was so beautiful. So thank you so much.
It is absolute truth. I mean, I heard you at the MOC conference, and I was like, huh. I remember you were running for the treasurer, right? And I didn't know, we're like, okay, I'm going to support her, but I didn't understand until you spoke. I was like, I am glad that I know her. And I didn't even know you, but I was associated. You were just so inspiring. Helped me to go on. That conference was great, but to help me to, to reevaluate my where I am and what I want to do. That's just great. I could listen to you all day.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. So, one more thing before I get started. I tell you, I like to talk. I'm looking for from you and an audio for like affirmations or something like that. That's what I'm looking for. I have one from somebody else I listen to every morning, but I could listen to I can I should have recorded you that last time I heard you. But yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So I'm gonna put
Oh,
that.
you are so flattering. Thank you so much.
I'll put that out there. Okay, so again, how are you? We have people who are interested in what you're doing, right? And how you are the secretary treasurer of New Jersey Education Association. And how did you get there from being a teacher? I'm not sure what grade you taught or what subject you taught, but how did you get from a teacher to you're part of the people, you're representing us. How did you
Well,
get there?
so I'll try to give like a condensed version. So I'm a high school English teacher. So I taught high school English in Montclair. I taught 10th graders and I taught African American literature. I try to tell people I think I got here because of my mouth. Because there was a lot transpiring in my district. And I'll be honest with you, Ronette, when it was first happening, I wasn't saying, oh, let me become an active part of my association. I was getting really disillusioned with public schools and what was and the privatization movements that were coming in, and I was getting ready to abandon ship. I was like one of those people that complained in their office and, moaned about the conditions, but I didn't do anything about it. And then one day we had a president of our union, and I walked up to her and I said, I just want to tell you, I think you're doing a wonderful job, but I'm leaving, I'm quitting. And she said, no, you're not. And I was like, is this woman crazy? Like, I just told her I'm leaving. She said, no, you're not. It's not your time. You're not right. It's not your time to go. And from there, I said, well, let me attend her meeting. She was the first Black president our union had ever had. So I said, okay, let me attend her meeting. I attended her meeting and I started to become more and more vocal. And I started speaking at board meetings and things like that. And I spoke at this one board meeting and someone turned to me and said, oh, you're the next vice president of our union. And from there, I think what has compelled me ever since is the desire for justice, like the belief that everyone deserves to be valued, everyone deserves to be treated fairly. And I have learned that all it takes is one person sometimes to speak up, to give other people enough confidence to do so. So that's sort of what propelled me into a position that I never, ever imagined I was going to be in. I never sat there and said, oh, I can't wait to be the officer in NJA. I just thought that, I can't wait to work amongst like-minded people who are pushing for some of the same things. And when I started to see the power in solidarity, I just thought to myself, like, listen, on this scale in Montclair, if we can move to X, then I know we can get to Z on a bigger scale, at the state level. And so that propelled me, even though I was like a lesser known candidate. People didn't really know who I was. And I remember someone saying, like, no one knows you. And so
People will tell you. Yeah.
and it was discouraging. And my brother said to me, he's the one who said to me, he said, your name is Petal. They'll remember that name. And it became my quest to make sure that people remember that name. And I think whenever you are moving in your actual passion and your actual purpose, doors just begin to open for you. And that's sort of what I did. I just sort of saw which doors open for me that matched my value system, matched the things that I'm passionate about, and made me feel like I was walking in purpose.
Oh, you said a mouthful. See, that is I think that's my driving force also, is that it's situational. Like
Mhm.
situations cause you to say, I'm not taking this anymore. Had you not gone to your president, you would have still been, you would have quit your job.
Yeah.
And when you say walking in your passion and your purpose, you it sounds like you eased into it. I know we have people always tell us we have these struggles that we have to go through. Maybe your struggle was um those situations that are causing that cause you to be frustrated. But when it was your time, it's your time. You said like you said, I saw you on we did something for MOC. I think it was a Zoom call or something. I'm not sure. And you were speaking, you were running for secretary treasurer. Like you said, I never heard of you. Next thing I know, you're in office. And I'm like, okay, all right. I like that. So yeah, things could propel you in a
Yeah.
way you never thought. I like that. I
Yeah.
really do, because I speak up, and people I think people kind of use me because they know I'm not afraid to say something. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I don't know if that's good or bad, but
You know what? I say? I try. My goal is to get other people to feel empowered enough to fight for themselves. Like I will be there with you. I will back you. And I was a local president in Montclair, and I remember we had an issue where they had taken the summer pay away from our ESPs. They lowered it. And I remember being in a meeting, and one of our ESPs, her name is Amy. Shout out to Amy. She's wonderful. She said to me, she stood up in the meeting, she was so angry, and she's like, the union should be doing this, and I can't believe the union didn't do this and the union didn't do that. And I said to her, when she finished, I said, you know what, Amy, you are absolutely right. So you and I are going to sit down, because Petal is not the union. And I said,
Yes.
they see Petal every single day, but who they haven't seen is this impassioned Amy. And I said, I'm not going to do it for you, but I will do it every step of the way with you. I'm going to be at every meeting that you have to speak. I'll help you prep. I think that goes such a long way into speaking life and power into people, so that it's not just me arguing your value, but you also valuing yourself enough to advocate for yourself.
Yeah. And then the people, once you do that, things start ideas start spinning in your
Mhm.
head. Once somebody gets you to think, oh, I can fight too.
Yeah.
And that really, I we went to a board meeting few months ago, and there were several teachers who had the same fight. I'm gonna say fight, same gripe. And the people, once they spoke and people wrote letters, they felt empowered whether we got answers or not. Because at the board meeting, you're not really gonna get answers. People have to go back and think it through and all of that. But people now, they're ready to say something more, and they're ready to do
Mhm.
something, or even find their own solutions. Because that's me. If I'm not talking to you unless I have the solution already in my head, or one solution, not the solution. But that it I already said, you already inspired me, making me step forward and say, I want her on my podcast. And just because I left that conference, that MOC conference in June,
Mhm.
empowered, feeling empowered. And that is because of
Thank you.
the several people who spoke up and saying, we are the voice, not just one person, not just the president, the vice president, or the secretary. We are the voice, and we can speak up. There's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to stop us because we have a voice.
Absolutely.
So I love that. I sound like I'm doing too much. Um,
Wonderful.
what what it is, you have that. I have a coach. He's like that too. He is powerful, and he speaks life, and he doesn't tell you. He said, I'm not gonna tell you what to do and what not to do. I'm just telling you what's a good idea, and what's a choice, and then it inspires us to move forward. So, okay, you have that. What about, how we have teachers like you who are going to quit? One
Mhm.
person says something to you, but sometimes it takes more than that. I don't know who that person was, what kind of person they were that inspired you right then and there. Sometimes it takes a little more. Like, what happens when you come across those people? Because I know you have, because I talk to those people every day.
I think I think that it's important to speak truth into people. I know we call it speaking life. I think that for me, my speaking life is speaking truth and being honest with people, not pretending that every day is a rosy day, that this task that we have decided to take up as educators is going to be an easy task. But what I do believe is that it's doable. It's one in which we can be successful. I know that we can be successful. I know the power of community, right? Like our ancestry is built on community and the success of community, and every adversity that we have all ever faced, whether we are talking about people of color or we're talking about women, our adversity has always been conquered by community. So when I come across educators that are having a hard time, one of the things that I try to do is to talk to them about community. And even if that community just starts with you venting it all out to me, sometimes we need to get that off of ourselves. But it's about finding those foundational people that no matter what, when you need to tap out, they'll be able to tap in for you. And I think that has helped me my entire journey. Sometimes the people that I can just call on and say, I just got to get this off me, and I just get it, and then just to get it off. I think letting educators know that it's okay. It's okay to have those days. And I think my other big thing, which this one might be a little hard for people to hear, right? Because we
Mhm.
as educators, um, we hear all the time, for the kids, for the kids, for the kids. And I feel like that phrase, for the kids, has taught us that we have to sacrifice and bleed out ourselves for the children. And maybe controversial stance on that is that that's not beneficial to the child. If I'm empty, if I've got nothing left to give, then that is not for the kids. And so my
Yeah.
suggestion to educators too is not it, you're not looking for a balance between your work and your personal life, because it should be unbalanced. Your personal
Mhm.
life, your personal care, your family, those things should take precedent over everything else. Because once I'm comfortable here, once I'm stable here, once my spirituality is stable, my familiar relationships are stable, my family is stable, I can then focus even greater on the professional piece. And so that's what I would encourage people to do. When you're getting to that point of burnout, you take a step back and don't let anyone make you feel guilty for doing so. You take the personal days that were negotiated for you. You take that time and say, I'm sorry, I can't answer any emails today. I'm not taking any calls today. I tell my best friend sometimes when she calls, I say, is this an emergency? She says no. And I say, okay, because I'm done for the day. and and that has to be okay. And I think as educators, sometimes we carry these levels of guilt when we decide to take care of ourselves. And so my advice to educators who are feeling like I'm on the edge, I'm about to burn out, is then you don't take breaks when you're exhausted, because that's
Yeah.
just your body sort of passing out. You
Mhm.
take breaks all throughout to avoid the exhaustion. And you find those people that are community enough with you that when you have to tap out, they can recognize that and they can pick up where you have left off.
Oh, that's fantastic, and that's what I've been talking about. Like whoever I meet, I talk to self care coaches and teachers who have that extra oomph, but it's not even because of they said, okay, let me take a break when
Mhm.
they feel exhausted. They have been taking care of themselves. They understand that you can't pour, as people always say, you can't pour from an empty cup. If you have
You
nothing.
can't. And it's not this concept of like, oh, I need to take a weekend off or I need to fly away. When I say I give myself breaks, when I'm having a really stressful day, I find the spaces or the text threads with my friends that make me laugh. Right? It when I say take a break, it's the it with community, it's finding those spaces where you feel safe enough, where you laugh until your stomach hurts, where you feel safe enough to cry, where you feel safe enough to ask advice, where you know that you're getting loving critiques, where you're getting a listening ear. It doesn't have to be these major, I'm taking off of work for XYZ amount of time, but you have to provide yourself pockets. Like I have text threads with my friends that are just hilarious because we're just silly when we get to talk to each other. And every now and then I have to jump into those text threads just so I can bring myself back down. And those are the breaks when I say, in order for us to avoid burnout, those are the breaks that we have to take with our community, because it's really hard to stay motivated if you're flying solo.
Right. And that when you say that, I heard so much in that, but the last thing you said, it feels being a teacher, I don't know, maybe principals too, because there's only one principal at a school. That's kind of an isolated
It is.
job because you're in the classroom and you can feel isolated and you can feel like you're alone in this until maybe you talk to somebody else. If you're just, I'm going to work and I'm going home and then I'm
Mhm.
leaving work at work. Sometimes you need more than that leaving work at work,
I mean,
because you
I'm
need.
gonna push unions. I'm gonna push unions because that's what I do. But that's also why I think your union comes in. There's so many different offerings where you can find like-minded people, right? So even if it's not in your building, let's say in your school building, there's not really anybody that you can talk to. We have over 200 that we have almost 200,000 members in the New Jersey Education Association. Of those almost 200,000 members, if you start to come out to things, if you start to jump on Zooms, you're going to find people, you're going to find your people in some one of the zillion conferences, programming things that we do. And sometimes those are going to be your people. And sometimes those are even better than people that are in your district, because you could just let it all out and
Yeah,
it's
yeah. That's true. You know how many people I met going to the first well going to any MOC event.
Yeah.
I met so many people. I sent Eric a message. I said, "Well, we need something else going on because we were meeting every I forgot Wednesday. Every Wednesday we were meeting for like 8 weeks or something before the convention, and now it's over. And we're meeting Saturday for delegate or something. I forgot what it is, but
The
I sent him
delegate
a message.
assembly.
He didn't respond though. I said we need something else, some another kind of boot camp because I miss those people, and
Yeah.
everyone was like a joke, or like you said, speaking truth, and it wasn't their truth, my truth. It was like the truth. This is what it is, and this is what we can and cannot do. So
Mhm.
you are absolutely right. Getting involved.
Yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
yeah,
I
I
think
love
it's
that.
reminding yourself, like, despite what some people in the world might like to say, despite some of the disrespect sometimes that's put onto the profession, we are in such a noble profession. Like, we are trusted with people's most prized possession. We get to shape minds, we get to mold minds, like reminding yourself of your value, because there's so much value in what it is that we do. Like, I've wanted to be a teacher since I was 4 years old. Like, I have always, I used to set up like I used to have that little chalkboard that had the little sponge, and I would
Uh-huh.
set dolls up. If I could convince my brother to play, I would make him play. I have always wanted to be a teacher. I have always loved my teachers coming in, and knowing that we get to provide, as your teacher, you're the parent, you're the counselor, you are everything to these kids. And so I think it becomes about defining ourselves by ourselves and not letting what other people say or what society pretends to say, what purports to say about us, not letting that become the definition of who we are or how we value ourselves. And what do we do? When you value something, you take care of it, right? Something that
Yes.
you care about, you take care of. And that's us, and that's our profession. You value yourself, you value the profession, then that means that you'll dedicate yourself to taking care of it.
Absolutely. That's something like I think all the time is like if you think what you're doing is noble, or like you said, or something you're called to do, or this is what I love to do. I don't believe, I know you can get tired. I understand that. But there's something in you, there's that extra something that says you got this. Not to mention you're doing what you want to do. I
Mhm.
know we might not like the curriculum, we not might not like what the administration is doing, but there's still that extra. I'm still doing this not for the kids, but I'm doing this because this is what I want to do. How can I say this is what my purpose is or my passion is, and then I don't want to do it?
Mhm.
It's something about that keeps me going. It keeps me reassessing every single day. I reassess and say, well, what did I do that didn't work? Or what did I do that did work?
Mhm.
And do I need to drive in more? Do not, I need to pull back a little bit. Whatever. It's because this is what I want to do for real.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that whole idea. Uh, thank you for that. That we
Sure.
have a question. We have a question.
Okay.
What is your teaching philosophy, and how did it influence your daily interaction with your students?
Mm. My teaching philosophy, so it's twofold. I think one of the things that I firmly believe is that it's not our job to teach children what to think, but it's our job to teach children how to think. That we want to build leaders. We want to build children who can question the world around them. We want to build children who feel valued and feel loved. I think that classrooms should be a place of value and love for all. Like, I firmly believe in the inclusivity, the mandatory inclusivity of a classroom, so that when kids come through, so in terms of how it influenced my interaction with students, for me it was in a lot of the little things. So it was funny because I miss my kids so much. I miss having my babies so much. And it would be really funny because I was one of those teachers where when the bell would ring, I would have to tell them, like, you guys have to leave. Or like, they would still come in the room. But if you saw me in September, it didn't always start like that in September, because despite all of that, we also had guidelines for our room. We also had, agreed upon rules of respect and how we're going to treat each other. And I modeled that for my students rather than just telling them this is what you're supposed to do. I modeled it for my students. So my philosophy for the classroom was that the classroom should be a place where every student feels loved and valued, because kids know when you don't care about them, and kids don't
Yeah.
from people who don't care about them, right? I think Cornell West, and I'm going to mess it up a little bit, but he says you can't teach the people if you don't love the people. And so I think that I use that my entire career as the reminder, like, you cannot teach the people if you don't love the people, right? And then secondly, making sure that I'm teaching them how to value themselves enough to value their own thoughts, their own opinions, because at the end of the day, I taught English, and years from now, my students aren't going to care what color car Gatsby drove and what it symbolized, but but the lessons that we created around it on how to work within a team and how to dissect the things that you're reading and how to critique time periods and cultures and behaviors, those are the things that I think stuck with them. So some of the ways I implemented that in my classroom is I stood by my door every day. There was not a time that I was not by my door to greet my students. And I would tell them things like, this is my house, and I wouldn't want people to walk into my house and not speak to me. So you say hi to me when you come into my house, and I say hi, I say hello to you. I started when they were first, as kids file in, I didn't jump right into when you get in, sit down and do blah blah blah. As they would come in, I would say something that I realized, like, oh, I heard you scored 3 points yesterday, blah blah blah, like something like that. So they would automatically be like, oh, you paid attention
Yeah.
to the basketball game, or you paid attention to the football game. And I was celebratory, because one of the things that I recognized, I taught remedial English, and I recognize that school sometimes becomes the place where it's not a gauge of how smart a student is, but how well a student is able to play school. And in that system, where so much of our language is deficit language, where we look at what areas students did not achieve, it doesn't allow students to feel valuable and accomplished if they learn differently, or if their skill sets are different than the what's required in the academic setting. So what I
Yes.
started doing with my students is celebrating everything. Little wins. If you used to be late to class every day and you had 3 days in a row on time, I'm celebrating. I'm letting the whole class know. I'm like, y'all see Ronnette. Y'all see Ronnette coming in here on time. Let's go, Ronnette. Let's go. And they get so like hyped up with it. Any little thing. I also would make a point of calling the parents and telling them. Because so many times for so many of my parents, when that phone would ring, it's telling them what their child has not done.
Yeah.
I would make a point of calling something like, I just want to tell you, I am so excited for Ronnette. You would not believe today she did this, 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 this. And that kind of like, you saw them start to want the accolades for anything. And it didn't just have to be not just a student who got an A on the test, right? The student who's able to improve from, you were getting a 65, now you got a 70. I'm about to celebrate your 70. You remember for days in a row. Now you went from never bringing this book to class to remembering every day to bring that book to class. I'm gonna celebrate that. And I'm going to celebrate the outside things you do, because I want to make sure that you know that I know that you're a superb wrestler. I saw what you did on the football field. I saw like all of those
Yeah.
different things, and I gave space. And those times you have right before break where it's like a half day, I would give space. You're a good dancer. Let me see. You can sing, right? I think those are the ways in which for me in my classroom, I wanted to demonstrate to them that I value you beyond a letter grade. And
Yeah.
I want for you is beyond just a letter grade. I want you to feel good. I want you to feel worthy in all of your spaces.
I like that. That's something I love about high school teachers, because the students are different.
Mm-hmm.
You can talk to them I know we talk to our little kids as people, but it's something different, because when we have our younger kids, we show them, we want to teach them how to add, how to subtract, how to read, right? So
Yeah.
we kind of forget a little bit that, that they're children. I really don't forget their children, but that they have personalities that need to be nurtured,
Yeah.
right? So I that's what I love about high school Middle school, that's something different. That's
Listen,
something I would.
shout out to you, middle school and elementary school educators. You listen, shout out to you. I taught 1 year of kindergarten, and my first year, fresh out of college, I taught kindergarten. And I enjoyed it. I did a good job. I even won like this Rising Star Award. And I'm telling you, Ronnette, the next day I turned in my resignation. I said, woo, you all listen, if you are an elementary school teacher and a middle school teacher, you are built for this. Okay?
Yeah, yeah, but that's true. That's how middle school teacher. You have to be built to be a built for it to be a middle school teacher. In my opinion, I did a long term. This is it, a long term sub position for seventh grade math. I quit in 4 days. This was September. I was supposed to be there till June. I couldn't do it. I couldn't. It just wasn't for me. I
I
couldn't.
think I think teaching as a whole, first of all, I know it sounded all hokey when people were saying teachers are superheroes. And I'm not just saying this because I'm in education. I think this is one of the toughest but most fulfilling jobs you could possibly do. Whether you teach pre-K or you teach all the way to 12th grade, whatever it is that you do, it is not an easy task. And I think COVID demonstrated that to a lot of families, that it's not
Yeah.
an easy thing to do, because between balancing all of the in classroom stuff, you also have all of the paperwork and everything else that goes with it. And so, in recognition that there's not a single teaching position that I consider to be easy, not a single subject matter, not a single grade level. There is not a single teaching position that I consider to be easy, especially because you have children. Like you have, some of us classrooms of 30 kids sometimes who are relying on you for their growth. And that's never easy.
Oh, you're absolutely. That's true. It is not easy. It's not easy, but it can be. It is. It can be. I'm gonna say it can be rewarding. Like today, I'm gonna tell you, I had a headache when I came into class today, and when we got to math, the students, I have bilingual students. Well, some of them bilingual, some of them just Spanish speaking, and so I had we were doing subtraction. This is the end of this unit, subtracting double digit regrouping subtraction. We have a test, we have an assessment Thursday, right? And I said, look, this I already had a headache, and I said, look, I don't know what to do. If you can't go to third grade, you can go to third grade not knowing every English word. You can go not reading uh in English, right? But you can't go to third grade if you can't subtract. And so it's like I don't know if I was giving them too much help always. So then I sat down on a table. We went over one equation, and then the rest I left to them. And I almost cried. They were solving the equations, they were answering all the questions. I was so excited. Everybody knew I was excited. The kids were grinning. Why are you laughing? So, because you don't understand, I'm about to cry. They did it when I was at the end. I said, I don't know what to do. If we can't get this, I don't know what else to do. And then I just let them, we went over one and I let them do. I mean, like 6 students came to me and they were sitting at the table, and then some were walking up. Some I had to send back to them. I said, oh, you have this. What was the problem? You have this. So I was so excited. And you talking about um letting them know, celebrating them. I was so happy just by that. And so it wasn't hard getting to that. Even today, just in 50 minutes of math from the beginning of it, I was frustrated. I was like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what else to do. You have all these strategies. I don't know what else to do. Try this way or that way, right? And then answer it. And then by the end of the class period, I was in heaven. I was in heaven. I gave out prizes. I just did it like because I was so excited. So no, it's not easy, but it's rewarding
It
for
is very
real.
so.
Yeah.
So
I have another question for you.
yes,
I have another question. You said you know how you said you miss your students.
I do.
So because you are the secretary of NJEA, secretary treasurer of NJEA, how does that work? Do you get to go back to your job? How does that? I don't even know how that works.
So you get, so it's a full-time, it's called full-time release, which
Mhm.
means that they make an agreement with my school district that they will release me to do the work of the secretary treasurer. So technically I'm still like a member of the Montclair Education Association. I still am listed as a Montclair Public Schools teacher, but I'm listed on leave. So for the time that I'm in the elected position, like this is my last year serving as secretary treasurer, and I'll be the vice president in September. So I'm still on. Thank you. I'm still on leave from my district. So whenever my time at NJA is done, technically yes, I can go back to my district, but right now, no, I'm not in the classroom. I don't have an opportunity to be in the classroom with my kids.
Oh, okay. I had that like a check mark. I want to know it. I want to know how did that work? Because I know our local
It
presidents is the
was
same thing.
It was
You know, I
hard.
didn't.
And it was very hard. And I tell people like I don't miss the paperwork, but I miss those kids because
Yes.
when we talk about people that can speak life into you, like kids are wise beyond their years, no matter what grade it is. When I taught kindergarten, I used to walk in, and if you want to feel like the most beautiful person in the world, teach kindergarten because those kids come in and compliment everything about you from head to toe, and they're just so loving. And then in the high school, the amounts of love that I got from my students, even on those days where it was like where I was personally struggling, and my kids were so good because they can almost read it and feel it, and they would
Mm-hmm.
adjust themselves to it. So I miss that. Like I genuinely miss that. I miss the energy that kids give. I miss the energy that, being in a classroom where we get to have I taught African American literature, and we had some amazing discussions um, about identity and culture in those spaces. That, those are the pieces that I miss, because like I said, I've always wanted to teach. I've always wanted to be
Yeah.
able to be in front of kids.
Well, now you get to teach us. I like to. I'm talking about you when you speak. I'm listening. I'm taking notes. So it doesn't have to be children. Now you can move on to us grown-ups because we need this right here. We
Yeah.
need that extra. How did she do that? How did she go from a teacher to being in the what do you call it? An officer?
Yeah,
Is
and
that what?
I'm an officer at NJA. Yeah.
Yeah, so go from that. That's something. If she can do it, that means there's a path for me if that's something I desire. I'm not saying it's a path
Absolutely.
for everybody, but if that's something I desire, that's that's a place like that could the thing that could happen.
Absolutely.
So teaching, you're teaching right now because you know what? I found this is, I don't know how I decided to be a teacher. I was a teacher all my life, and not because I didn't want to. I started out working in factories, then working in corporate, and then I really wanted to teach. And I really didn't know how to do it until I came back to New Jersey, and it's like laid out for you. Other states, it's not laid out. I was in Georgia, I couldn't figure it out. But New Jersey helps you from day one. You can go to your county, um, what is it called, the county board of education, and they have like paperwork already for you to
Mhm.
this, do this and that, and then you just wait, right, like that. In other states it wasn't like that easy, but yeah, this is exciting. So that's, I love what I'm doing. I just know I was a teacher. No matter what I did, if I learned about a fingernail polish that looks good and it lasts, I'm telling you about it. I was always a walking commercial for
See, I'm
anything.
the opposite. I think this role, it's not as obvious to people, but I'm actually very shy. I'm actually so I'm the opposite. I'm not the type to like talk to strangers. I feel like, so one day I was listening to, they were doing like an interview with Beyonce, and she was talking about how, oh, I'm so shy that when I get on stage it's something different. And at first, when I first saw that years ago, I was like, please. But now I'm like, okay, that makes sense, because I'm actually pretty introverted and shy. I'm really good to be by myself. So I'm not the type that would have walked up to strangers to start talking. But in spaces when we're talking about education, when we're talking
Mhm.
about justice, when we're talking about equity, I feel like that those are very comfortable spaces for me. So it's a lot different. I'm fine to like talk, have those conversations, and this job doesn't really let you be
Yeah.
shy. So there's that.
Yeah. Somebody hands you the mic. Go. I, but I kind of got that from you. Just seeing you until you had that mic in your hand, then I saw that that come out because you were like somebody said you were prepared, and it wasn't just like I don't know what to say, but you had something to say. So that's a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up. You won't believe it, but well, you can't believe it, but I grew up. I was always shy. I always was that. Now I think I was introverted because of circumstance. And then once I don't care about the circumstance, I'm me. And so
Mhm.
I'm more kind of extroverted now.
Yeah.
But we have another question. Um,
Hi,
in your
Linda.
current position. Yeah. In your current position, do you feel that you sometimes subjected to being a people pleaser? If so, how does that affect your mental health? Where you feel like I don't even have to explain that.
Mhm.
Like you have to do what people say or say what people want to hear.
So you know what, when I first started, because I didn't know how to do, I had no idea how to be an officer, right? So when I first started, there were so many different people saying like, you have to dress like this, you have to do this, you got to, this is how you're supposed to interact. And I believed it when I began, because I didn't have any, there was no direction. I didn't have anyone sort of mentoring me in that role. So I think when I first began, Linda, I felt like I was a little subjected to people pleasing, because people would always remind you like, hey, you're elected to this position, people have to like you have to be elected, blah blah blah. And it was terrible on my mental health, because I believe that someone who's a people pleaser has pleased everyone but themselves, right?
Yeah.
So it is impossible. One of the things I had come to terms with is there's never going to be a space where every single person you come across likes you, and that has to be okay. And those things have to be okay with you as long as you like you at the end of the day. And people pleasing didn't allow that to be true for me. And so I will say that it lasted maybe the first month or so of me being in this position. And then I had a talk with my mentor, who is actually the president that I spoke about. She ended up being my mentor. And I had a talk with her just about how I was feeling in the position, which wasn't great. And she said to me, well, what are your lanes? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, what are your lanes? Like, what are the things that you're tasked with? And what are the things that you're passionate about? Why are you there? And I gave her four. And she said, and then you stay in your lane. That's what you do. So it's not about pleasing everybody all the time, everywhere. You stay in your lane, and walk in your truth in those lanes, and those who are supposed to follow along will follow along. And one of the things you realize that sometimes in this life there are people who don't like you, and you'll be glad that they don't, because you
Yeah. Yeah.
recognize it based on your value system, based on your behaviors. If I'm your type of person, then I need to check how I'm behaving. So my people pleasing went out the door pretty quickly, because I recognized that I needed to be the type of leader that can sleep at night, that could look myself in the mirror and know that I, spoke my truth to power. And that didn't happen when I was trying to please everyone in the space. So, yeah.
Right. That's a good question. That's because you really can't. I don't know. You can't please everybody unless there's only two people. Unless there's only two people, you and somebody else. So yeah, and I know people who said they didn't make it to where they are now because well, it took them a long time because they were trying to please everybody. They wanted everybody to like them. So then how you're torn when you do that. And just I like that what she said, stay in your lane and you have to know what that lane
That's
is.
what that lane is. And I think
Oh,
that's why I said that's where we have to be very mindful that we're defining ourselves and we're not allowing other people to define us for them, right? Because there's some people that you'll encounter that'll say, like, oh, I think Petal is so wonderful. And there are other people that you'll encounter that'll say, oh, I can't stand that Petal. right? And it's
Uh-huh.
based on whatever our interactions were, but you have to decide, like, well, who are you? Are you, and when we decide that we're going to take control of how we define ourselves, we become fine with what other people think about us because it doesn't matter so much. And that's why I said it becomes important to me. How do I see myself? And how can I live with myself is a lot more important to me than whether or not somebody at the end of the day decides that they like me or not. And I also think my last thing on the people pleasing, I think for educators, we also need to find some balance between, like, who is it that we're trying to please and why, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody's not coming to your house for things for Thanksgiving dinner, and that's so why are you going out of your way in hopes that this person likes you? Like, what difference does it make at the end of the day? And I used to tell, when I was the local president in Montclair, I used to tell my staff, that my membership, that all the time, like, you're so overly concerned with, like, this principal or this administrator liking you, to the point where you're sacrificing your own value, your own comfort, and what good does it do you? And if they didn't like you, what good does it do you to sacrifice yourself just so somebody could say they like you? So making sure that we have placed people in the appropriate valued positions in our lives. I want my father to like me because I love my dad. I love
Yeah.
my nieces. I love my nephews. Their opinion of me matters to me, right? A random person reading an article, and they get on that NJA Facebook page and say some not nice things sometimes, right? And I have to tell myself, like, it doesn't matter. I don't know you. And it's
Yeah.
things are likely never ever to say to my face. So we have to get out of that whole, like, I need people to like me, because what it does, unfortunately, Ronnette, is it stops our advocacy, because we become so afraid to advocate for ourselves, for our associations, for our communities, because we're afraid that if we advocate, people will start to dislike us. If we speak up, people won't like us anymore, and it silences us.
You you said so much, and that's so true. That's like what I've been going through the past 2 years. I want to say 2 years, where I had to say something, and then this person doesn't like it, that person doesn't like it. Then I'm hearing you. They don't. Somebody said to me, they don't like when you speak up. Who is they, and what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? This is something serious I need to address. But people try to say you shouldn't be like that. So what's going to happen? Am I going to be fired because I'm speaking my piece? Like, I don't understand. But there's things. I changed schools, and I was worried about my principal. How is she gonna feel about me? How does she feel about me?
Mhm.
She didn't even know me, right? You know what I'm saying? So I had to get to myself. This is who I am. This is what I'm gonna do. This is what I love to do. And you like me or you don't, or you like me a little bit, doesn't really matter. As long as you know I'm doing my job, you
Mhm.
can't fight me if I'm doing my job. You know what I'm saying? You can fight. You might not like my personality. I might talk too much. I might talk too much for your liking. I might not talk enough for your liking, but I can't worry about that because then what? Then
Mhm.
what? I'm worried. I'm stressed out. Life doesn't work like that because
Yeah.
you can't please everybody, and you can't worry about if somebody likes you, because it's not going to make a difference. When if it's your principal, they evaluate you. They have to evaluate you on your job. Maybe if there's that other piece that says, um, how does she relate to the other staff or colleagues? That could be something. Maybe I don't know what, but you just got to be factual. That's how I feel. Then right now, I don't even care. I don't even care. So,
But
but
you know what I found too, like, and even relating to your colleagues, like, people like authenticity, right? And your authentic self hopefully isn't nasty, isn't mean, isn't rude. So people tend to like authenticity. So being comfortable in being yourself, you find your tribe, you find your people. So if you're a quiet person, you find people that don't mind that you're a quiet person. If you're talkative, you find people that don't mind that you're talkative. I think my biggest push is that people show up as their authentic, unapologetic selves into spaces, because it's too hard to continuously perpetrate a fraud.
right. I remember I read something about somebody. It's hard to. Somebody said it's hard to speak to people or give a friendly hello to somebody that I don't like, and then people are faking whole lives. I don't know how they do it, but that is true. And then being authentic. I had for a minute. I changed my podcast. Right, I changed it for a minute. It didn't work. I changed it because somebody was like, it's going to be hard for you to get an audience, or something like you have to be general for everybody. But I have a niche, right? Or niche or whatever, depends on what kind of word you're trying to say. And that's what it is. So me trying to change for somebody else just because you did that and it worked for you, that
Mm,
doesn't mean it worked for me. Then I can't even function right. I'm like, oh Lord. I remember I had these guys on here and it was a great episode. And then they kept on saying God, this and God. I was like, oh God, because I was trying to change from that. Right? I was trying to change. I was trying to be general. And they kept on saying Jesus this, and I was like, wait, please. And then it didn't work for me. It didn't work for me. So I'm not afraid to say God taught me this, or I got this from the Bible. I'm not. I was trying to be general so everybody could like me, but that's not my niche. That's not. So if this is it, this is it. So yeah, trying to not be authentic, not trying to be your authentic self, it causes pain because I was having pain. They kept on saying, God told God, I was like, okay.
and
But
I don't want to purport it like it's something easy because it's not. Like I say to
yeah.
people all the time, I have been Black my whole life,
Mhm.
and it is not, and it is not easy to decide to be unapologetically yourself, especially in a world that is constantly pushing people to conform. They push us to conform the way we look, the way we speak, the way we behave. There, in this new age of social media too, right? People want you to conform for likes, they want you to conform for podcast audiences, all of those things. It's very difficult. So when I say it, I'm not saying like, oh, and then
Yeah.
tomorrow you wake up and you'll be able to do it, because it's not an easy thing to do, and it's something that you have to be very, very intentional about all the time. Like I remember when I was running for secretary treasurer, I remember someone telling me, well, they don't elect Black women. And they said, and you are dark skinned Black woman. And then they told me, at the very least, maybe change your hair, maybe straighten your hair, right? And I'd like to say that I just like brushed it off, but I didn't, because all of those things start to sink in, and the expectations of how people want you to show up, those do sink in. So when I say showing up as your unapologetic self,
Yeah.
it's with intention that you have to do it. You have to
Yeah.
intentionally decide, like, I've been Black my whole life. I'm going to be Black when I run for this position, right? Like, this is the way my hair grows out of my head. So this is the hair that I'm going to wear. And I'm going to walk into spaces and I'm not going to apologize or shrink myself because of it, but I'm going to carry on the same way that everybody else does, the same worth that everybody else
Yeah.
does. And I think that's one of those things where we have to remind ourselves regularly that we're allowed to do. And like you said, it's the only time you feel comfortable, right? So you
Mhm.
attempt to be in a different niche, but if you don't feel comfortable in that space and it's not authentically you in that space, people can see right through that. People can,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you might get away with it for a little bit, but after a while, people get to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not gonna hold everybody up for too much longer. I can appreciate that about being authentic, but we have to know who we are. We have to, there's some room for growth in everybody. Knowing who you are is the thing. And like you said, because you're comfortable in it, you're comfortable in that space. And so I don't know, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I summing up like something for somebody who wants to do more in their space, do more outside of their space. I know you have done it. You are doing it. You say you're going to be our president, and I am so proud. I am so proud. Oh, like I know her. She was on my show. But what advice, because you said it already, just sum it. Like, what advice do you have for somebody being an authentic self, walking in, not stressing out, not letting the job cause burnout? How, just something, because there's something, and it could be a sentence, it could be a little paragraph.
Mhm.
What would you give us as advice for being
Um,
that?
so my first piece of advice for someone who said, whatever way you decide you want to move, understand why you've chosen to move in that direction, right? And know that there's certain motivators that won't sustain you. I don't believe that strictly moving for money is sometimes enough to sustain you through difficult times, through difficult waters. I think being still, being quiet for a little bit and understanding like what do you really value? What are the things that ignite that passion in you? And how can you move in those spaces? Like figuring out, why do I even want to move in those spaces? If I want to move up, if I want to, run for something just because I'd like to have this title, I would discourage that, right?
Yeah.
I would discourage that, because if you haven't identified yourself and you haven't valued yourself beyond the title, it'll be a very difficult space for you to be in mentally. So my suggestion to educators is that you have already tackled the most difficult job in the world. You teach, right? You work with children every single day. So if you can do that, there is little else that you can't do. You could run for office. You could run for local office. You could be a mayor. You could be a town council person. You can be on a board of ed. You have literally chosen a profession that has equipped you with a skill set to do so many things. But you have to pause, give yourself space, and really, really evaluate yourself. And that means all of the wonderful things about you and all of the not so wonderful things about you, and decide, why do I want to be there? And if your why is rooted in your passion, in your actual calling, then even your tough days will be good days. And I'll close with this. When I was younger, I used to ask my mom and my dad were like so close as a couple. And I used to ask them, my mom, I said, how did you know that you loved dad? And she said, you know what? When I loved even what I didn't like. And so I use that when I tell people, how do you know that you have fallen in love with yourself? When you have learned to love even those spaces of you that need improvement, even those spaces of you that you may not like, but you know they need improvement. You've learned to love them, and you've learned to understand who you truly are authentically, and you move in that direction, in that passion, in that purpose, and let that be the guiding factor for how you navigate this system. And you recognize also that if your decision is to stay in your classroom until the day you retire, that is such a noble thing to do as well. Do not feel that you need a particular title before you leave to be valuable, because some of the most purposeful people in my life have been my classroom educators. So that's what I would say.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank
Oh
you
wow.
for having
That was
me.
that was great. And I'm gonna make a clip out of that, because remember I said I need the affirmation. That's it right there. Listen to that every day. Learn to, when you love yourself, then you are authentic and you are can move in that. I love that. Like, oh, even what she said, even with through what you don't like, that is powerful self-awareness. Yeah, because you are you. You
Yeah,
can fix what you don't like. You can. Nothing's stopping us.
you
So
can. So, and once you
yeah,
value yourself, you will teach people how to treat you, and life will become better. So, thank you so much,
absolutely.
Ronnette. I don't think I've ever done a podcast before, so I hope this was good. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah, this was fantastic. I love it. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for those words of encouragement and
Thank you.
drive, because we got this now. We got this. And so again, this is Petal NJEA, Secretary Treasurer, future, soon to be, what do they call it? Elect.
Uh,
Uh,
I'm the vice
President
president elect. Yes.
elect, Vice President elect. And I'm so glad that you got that position. And again, everybody, thank you for joining me. I have some people watching, some teachers. I'm just glad they came and showed up. So again, thank you and have a blessed day. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Share it with another teacher. That's what I mean by share. And I appreciate you for tuning in. Thank you.
Thank
Uh,
you. Thank you, everyone.
have a good night.
Bye bye.